All right, guys, I think I've got him on the line now. He's the newest Australian record holder after he ran an Australian record for the indoor 3,000 metres. He recently ran just a few hours ago, 7:33.12 at the New Balance Grand Prix. Cam Myers, welcome to the Inside Running Podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. Much appreciated.
Well, you just raced a couple of hours ago over in Boston. What's the time there now? And congratulations on that national record.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 10:15 now, so I guess I'll be going to bed pretty shortly. But yeah, super happy.
That's good, because your recent interviews after races, Cam, you haven't been that happy when I've thought maybe you should be happy, but it was good to see. I did see the Let's Run interview, and this one, a big smile on your face, and we're happy with your moves out there.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it. I think more just because of the progress I've made, especially in like just my aerobic strength over the past sort of couple years, but even as far back as like the last 3 years. So I think that was probably what makes it me so proud, I guess.
Cam, when we did the long form interview and you just come off that Zatopek race, the 3K there, I said, "Oh, what do you think you could run like with a stronger field?" And you basically said, hopefully like mid 7:30s, but you've even gone faster than that. And I watched that interview on Let's Run, and for me, it was like the first run as a pro where you've actually been satisfied and almost surprised yourself. So what does that do for your confidence moving forward?
Yeah, I'm super confident, I guess. I sort of race most of my races pretty confident, but yeah, it's good going into a race like Millrose, which is as important as it is. I think racing with confidence in a field where I could potentially be the slowest guy in the race. We haven't seen startless or anything yet, but like I could legitimately be the slowest guy. So having that confidence under my belt and having a result like that is pretty important going into a race like that.
And whose scout were you most happy to take tonight?
I probably wouldn't tell him, but Hobbs. I'm pretty good mates with him, but it's always nice to beat him.
He was in trouble that last 100 meters.
Yeah. It was pretty hot from the gun. So
and he finished fifth, didn't he, at the Olympics in the 1500?
Yeah, I cut him some slack though because he's also run 1:43. I think he goes sort of further the 8:15 way than the 15:5, but yeah.
And do you get any feedback? Like, did you know you were running that fast?
Throughout the race, I kind of, because they'd said that the pace was going to be 60s for the first 2 laps, and then it was going to sort of slow down to 60.5. And so I was a bit hesitant because obviously, like Zatopek was fast, I guess, but it was still 62s. So I went through the mile there at like 4:09. And so to think that I was going to have to go through it like 4:03 or 4:04, it's pretty daunting. So I looked at the clock every lap, and I think even like 200 and 400 meters in, I was like, this is not comfortable at all. So I was just happy to hold on, really.
What was the track like, Cam? The New Balance indoor track?
It's pretty good. It's slightly different to the Armory because it's got it's the same banking as BU, but it's just like a different surface that they put underneath the track. So you don't quite get the bounce that you get at BU, but it's like banked the same. So it feels quite nice. You can keep your rhythm going pretty well.
And I guess before we move on to the Want to Make a Mile and Millrose, like what's the vibe like at this meet in terms of like give us an understanding of what happens at these meets. Like, do they put on like an after party where everyone goes out for dinner? Do you do your own thing? Are you getting swamped by the fans over there like you are back here?
Yeah, I mean, some meets have after parties, but I don't think this one, not really. So I think it's just maybe the timing of the event and indoors itself. But as far as like fan support and stuff go, it's not too different. Like, I know for instance, Millrose, that gets like 5 grand people there, and they fill out the stadium, and there's nowhere to move pretty much. Some of these lower key meets, like, I mean, this was still pretty packed. I mean, there was no seats really. I think it's sold out even, and it's pretty crazy. Like in a facility where everyone has to catch the elevator to get up, it's pretty nuts.
But you're well known over there. Like a lot of the youngsters are coming up to you.
Yeah, reasonably well. I think having run so fast young, the American high schoolers sort of look up to me, I guess. And yeah, there's a lot of those going around. So I'm pretty well known in America, but obviously not like the support that they showed to the American guys.
Cam, did you do any work on an indoor track between, like, last week? I think that race was the first time you'd ever run on an indoor track. Did you do any workouts between that and this one?
I did my pre-meet yesterday on it. Yesterday, and that was just like I did 100, a couple 200s, and another 100. But aside from that, no, not really. Obviously I was down in Florida before or between the races and before, so there's actually not even one there, I don't think, because it's just so warm. It was like 25 degrees between the races. It was awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of our listeners are like rec runners, and myself and Croaks and maybe Ali as well will probably never run on an indoor track. Like, what does it feel like? Do you have to concentrate and like lean into it a bit and like a bit unbalanced?
Yeah.
Like, give us a bit of a summary.
Well, I'm like still pretty unfamiliar with it, but it definitely the faster you go, the more comfortable you feel. Yeah, which is it's weird, but it's just like I think having that bank, it really does help you at those faster speeds. Today actually I was starting in the second stagger, so like in the outside lanes, and it's actually quite a lot more sloped in the higher lanes. So that was quite weird. I had to concentrate a lot just to make sure I wasn't gonna fall over. So yeah, it is a bit of a weird feeling.
And breaking Craig Mottram's record, which he set back in 2008, was that on your radar? Like, were you thinking about it?
Yeah, I'd kind of had a look at it, so I knew what it was. It wasn't something that I was thinking like, yeah, I wasn't really thinking about it too much. I knew that I'd run under 740. I was pretty confident I would. So it was just like, how far can I get? And I knew that the race was being paced at sort of 7:30-ish pace. So my plan was really just to hold on as long as I can, and whatever happened. I would have been happy with 7:35, 7:36, and not getting the record, because to me it's just that progress that I've had over the last 3 years in in the 3K event that sort of makes me pretty satisfied with this one.
And what do you put that, I guess, progress down to? Is it increased mileage? Is it doing those double sort of threshold sessions on the Thursday, or like a combination of things?
I think, yeah, all of those things are important, but I think the number one thing is just the consistency that I've had, because I haven't really had to miss anything in the past 3 years. I think like I had my first week off after Peru this year because I was just a bit exhausted, and that was the only time that I've really taken any time off. So I think just that consistency over a very long period is what's been so key for me.
And how are you going to work this year? Like, you're obviously doing a bit of an indoor season now, and then I'm assuming World Champs is on the radar for September. So how do you structure your year with that, just to make sure that you can peak again second half of the year?
Yeah, so I think the way to do it is if I can sort of race as minimally as possible in Australia, because you don't want to get too sharp, but I want to be sharp enough so I can still run well. So I decided I would do this 3K instead of the one in Sydney, and then between back and Maury Plant, I'll be at altitude for the majority of that part, and then straight after nationals as well, I'll go back up to altitude, and then when I'm over in Europe, I'll sort of look to have 5 to 6, even longer weeks of just up at altitude, where I don't need to worry about racing. And I think having those big blocks midway through the season should keep me in pretty good aerobic shape, and then from there I can just sharpen up, with races as well as training sessions. So yeah.
No doubt the Aussie indoor mile record is on your mind. It's like what Ollie Hawes 350.8, I think it is. And given you beat Adam Fogg last week after doing all the work, and he's gone sub 350, that's obviously something that's you're looking at next weekend. Yeah,
for sure. It's actually quite funny. I said to Ollie today, I said that I'm gonna break your record. But the thing is, he's gonna break my record in the 3K. I don't think my 3K will last next weekend because Kai, Ollie, and Stewie are both running in the 3K. I could see myself being fourth on the ranking list after next weekend. All three of them
First
probably
or fourth
ready to
in the
go.
week.
What did
I don't know about that. I don't reckon.
what was Ollie's response when you said that to him?
I think he'd been thinking the same thing. Pretty like-minded.
Well, it makes sense given Adam's ran 349 indoors after you've beaten him, but not only did you beat him, you did all the work in that race as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think he also sort of benefited from having that race stimulus. So, yeah, it goes to show you how a race can help you and improve your fitness as well in that aspect. So, yeah.
Do you get to rub shoulders with those guys much over there, like the other Australians? Jess Hull was there as well, but pulled out with sickness. Like, are there opportunities for did the Aussies stick together there? Or it's very much like do your own thing.
Yeah, yes and no. I think yeah, it's like meal times is probably the biggest chance you get to sort of see those guys, and if they're there at the same time with me as me, I'll go and sit on a table with them. But other than that, not really, because we're sort of just on slightly different schedules. But no, I've seen Stewie and stuff, and then an Ollie around the place, and yeah, we're all friendly.
Who protects you and looks after you though, Cam? Like you're 18, other side of the world, Australian record holder, world record holder. Like who looks after you over there? James Templeton travels with you?
Yeah, so JT's over here. He comes to most meets, I think. Like, most of the meets his athletes are at, he's there, and I think most managers are like that. And especially the companies, they will probably have someone out there. So yeah, JT's always around, so that's good if I have any problems. And I can go down and get a coffee or something with him as well. So that's always helpful.
And talk us through your setup in Florida. Why Florida? Who are you living with?
Yeah. The only really reason was because Gout was on a training camp there with Noah and stuff. And so that group was there. And it was also just going to be far, far warmer. So, I mean, it was like negative 11 degrees this morning here in Boston. So Florida being 25 degrees, it's just far more appealing.
So you just been down on the track with Gout, Noah Lyles, just as you do as an 18-year-old?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that they can comprehend that you have to do so many laps as a distance runner. Like they're doing like a couple 150s and that's their session. And I'm just there running a lot of laps. It's probably like they've never even seen it before.
You're a big student of the sport, I think, and like the significance of breaking a Craig Mottram record. Like maybe you're too young to know like how big of a deal Craig Mottram was back in the day because you probably weren't even alive. But does that hit differently? And then the second part of the question, like all these, like not just you, some of these like young times coming out at the moment. We saw the NCAA record go down. This kid over Sam Roth over New Zealand's running quick. Like you pay attention to all this stuff?
Yeah. I'm definitely pretty across it, but I think the thing about Craig's record is it's almost kind of sad to erase it from the record books because like the athlete that Craig was, you almost don't want to see a record like his go because he was just so dominant in his era, and it's like I'm getting towed to a 7:33 and I guess I'm coming third in the race, but Craig was like he was dominating races and actually winning, and like I mean, you go back and you can watch races and him handing it to Bikali. So it's like, it's just the way that the times are now, and they're so relative. So yeah, I feel like it's tough. The only thing that really matters is like the silverware you get, right? So yeah.
Yeah, but you give that away, don't you?
He's got all the right answers, Croaks. Have you been getting in his ear on all these training sessions?
No.
Well spoken.
I can't breathe when I'm running with him.
Who's going to break Craig's 12:55 5K? Will that be you in a couple of years or?
Oh, I hope so. But I think Stewie or someone will get it before me. I think Ollie. I remember Ollie saying, I think it was London Diamond League last year. He said he was going to have a crack at Craig's record at sometime in the future, and I think he'd probably get it. To be fair, but it's sort of at the point now where it's like everyone is running so fast that yeah, yeah. I think that it could be Kai, it could be Morgan, it could be Stewie. Any of those guys could have a crack and get it.
And Cam, how have you been spending your days? So outside of training, what have you been doing in Florida?
Oh, pretty much nothing. I watch Netflix, and that's pretty much it. Because I wander down. I'll go to the cafe and stuff. But like between that, not really much, because Clermont's a pretty quiet area. It's sort of where they base, and it's a really weird town. Like it's almost deserted. There's no one there. So not a lot. I just watch Netflix, chill out, and I'm just counting down the days until I can race again, really.
And what's on the top of your Netflix list?
I've been watching this show called Dexter. Yeah. It just sort of came up on my recommended, and I thought, well, I'd give it a try.
Are you building into the do you know Len Johnson, the journalist, Cam? Probably the top running journalist in Australia, writes for Runner's Time, used to write for The Age. He wrote an article about how you're channeling Herb Elliott at the moment on the weekend.
Oh, the Runner's Tribe.
He got that. Yeah. Not sure where he got that idea from. Someone may have mentioned it on last week's show, but you build into that kind of hype.
Listen to that. Sorry,
you build into that kind of hype, like you take it on.
Not
just
really.
Like water off a duck's back.
It's almost like Herb Elliott was like the generation before that I can't really like. I can't really resonate much with it because I've heard the stories and Dick speaks so highly of Herb Elliott, but it's hard to comprehend that he went through a career without losing. Like that's just. Yeah, it's unbelievable to me. It's hard to comprehend.
Any more questions, boys and girls, before we let him go to bed? It's a late night over there in Boston. Croaks, you got one for him?
I've just got one more in terms of like, I can't remember who I interviewed, but it was somebody like one of our established stars who basically struggled like first year sort of out on the circuit, especially traveling overseas, because it's one thing to run fast in Australia where travel's minimal, you're not away from home, but then they went overseas and didn't quite run
Jeff
as
Risley,
well.
I reckon. Talk to Jeff and Luke about that. They often speak about that.
Whereas, like, okay, you're on the circuit a little bit last year, but you really haven't had poor performances overseas. Like, why is that for you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't find the travel too difficult. Also, I think 2023, JT sent me over there for 5 weeks, and it was kind of just like sort of get my bearings a little bit, get used to the travel, and sort of have that exposure before going into sort of 2024, which would obviously be the Olympic year. So having that exposure to it before it really mattered also helped to take some pressure off. But yeah, I don't really get knocked around by the travel too much, because if I don't sleep, I'll just end up sleeping during the day. So I don't really find that as an issue.
Don't miss home?
Not really. Here and there I do, but I'll call my parents. I'll text my parents if I miss them. Other than that, I find it I don't mind being on my by myself and spending time by myself. So it's fine. It's fine, really.
Probably why you're a good distance runner.
Yeah, you have to spend a lot of time by yourself.
Yeah, that's a good skill to have, because probably the next 10, 15 years you're going to be doing some big trips, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
Good.
Any more questions, Ali, before we let him go?
Nah, just congrats, Cam. That was awesome. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Fun watching you.
Yeah.
Cam, I've got one. Oh, can I just get this last one in, Croaks?
Yeah.
Because this is one I sent to Croaks, but he didn't ask it when he did the long form interview with you, Cam. He gets a bit protective about what questions he asks. Doesn't like me throwing my ones in there. But I had a question about, you did comment in that long form interview about how you picked up like a shitload more followers. One morning you just woke up. Like, we saw Ollie Hoare and Sinead Diver both talk about like the impact of social media at the Paris Olympics. Like, do you have someone, I can't imagine what your DMs are like. Like, do you have someone helping you, kind of like protecting you on that front? So just, Gary from Toowoomba can't just send you a message about what his opinions are with your distance running at the moment?
Not really. I mean, I kind of read most of my DMs, and if I get one that's negative, most of the time they have some kind of like truth in it, or they're just like an opinion that just doesn't matter to me at all. And so if I get someone that's, making some criticism, often I'll read it and I'll just be like, well, fair enough. It's not a lie. Like if someone's telling me I've had a bad race or a bad kick, it's like, well, yeah, it's quite obvious. So I don't really buy into it too much. It's like, yeah, it's
You
not
got some good
something that
jokes on there as well. You sent us a very good joke today, which I can't repeat on air, but it
Oh,
was
yeah.
yeah, it was very
No,
good.
yeah,
So
yeah. I
you
make a
got
lot
some good work on there, Croaks.
I can't
Good
believe that
banter.
you're 18. I can't believe you're 18 with that maturity of just like taking all the negative feedback and it's just like water off a duck's back. Yeah, whatever. Okay, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, sometimes it's like you literally know what they're talking about anyways. It's like, yeah, I mean, I think Ollie and like Sinead were in a completely different situation, and it's so hard for me to compare to something like that because obviously they were getting attacked personally, which I don't think should ever happen in the sport. But yeah, I think for me, getting attacked about a performance is completely fine within the sport, and you should be getting attacked on your performances. It's like you're paid as a professional runner and you're held to the highest standards. But yeah, getting attacked personally is definitely off limits.
Do you ever sort of fight back and like have a bit of a go at them saying, yeah, what are your PBs or what have you done?
Fire back.
Yeah. I'm a bit chirpy when it comes down to it, which is probably a blessing and a curse. But I try not to be too rude or too direct. Yeah.
Good. Cam, thanks for giving up some time. Probably one of the biggest names in global distance or middle distance running at the moment. And we really appreciate you chatting to us on the Inside Run podcast. Good luck for next weekend.
Much
Hopefully we'll get another
appreciated. Thanks for
Australian
having
record
me.
next to your name. Thanks, mate.
Thank you. Cheers.
See ya.
Thanks, Cam.
Thanks, Cam. I've just ended that recording.
Oh, perfect.
Great work.